So we are reading Isaac Asimov's short novella, Youth. And a novella would be a little bit longer than a short story, but shorter than a book. So this novella was published in 1952. And something about Isaac Asimov, he was a science fiction writer. He actually wrote The Three Laws of Robotics, which was made into the movie iRobot. And so if World War II ended in 1945, then right after World War II ended, this Cold War started, which was a series of tensions, but it was also many wars in other countries. But the main tension was between the Soviet Union and America. And there was also a movement because during World War II, the British, the French, and the Spanish, they would have been saying that they would have given their colonies independence if they helped them during World War II. So there was a lot of decolonialization going on after World War II. Now, this story, you could say it has links to or themes that could make readers think about either the Cold War and decolonization, or how imperialism works, which imperialism would be, we will talk about that as we go. So in the very first chapter, we are going to meet Slim and Red, and these would be the nicknames that they go by. We can assume that maybe Red has red hair and Slim might be small. And from their dialogue, we learn that Slim is visiting this house, Red's land. So we know they are somewhere out in the country. And we also know that there was some sort of thunderstorm the night before. And then we get this idea of Red introducing the circus. And he has found these animals. And he is talking about how it will be their ticket into the circus. So another interesting fact, obviously, they're just kids and they don't mean anything malicious by this circus theme. But remember, this is the point of view of children, but it's still written by an adult, right? And so they discuss this, and then Red is going to show them the animals, and this is when we find out there's a hole in this canvas, which could be odd. That's why it's highlighted. And they aren't really worried about it, but then they see these animals. All right, so for our first question, we had what type of narration? So that would be your third-person narration. The narrator is not in the story. And if the narrator is not in the story, then we want to know right away whose point of view we see. So we know it's the point of view of these two boys. And we could say they're going to be young, innocent, naive. And if we want to make a prediction of how telling it through their point of view could drive the story's plot, well, anytime you have a story that's being told from the point of view of kids, you might have to do more work as the author trying to figure out what's going on, and if the kids are unaware of situations that the adults in the story are aware of. So it can make it tricky for the reader. And then we have this article about circuses. So there are two here. Now, clearly we kind of know by now that circuses are very exploitative when it comes to animals. And really animals, they're like elephants, and some animals are not allowed, circuses aren't allowed to have them anymore because they're just bringing them around. But something about circuses is it was kind of started by Europeans, and it was like, obviously this would be the land or a time when there's no television. So people would go out to these circuses and they would travel by horseback. And one of the things was somewhat of a propaganda. You could definitely say that it was trying to depict Asian and Muslim subjects as like experiences or exotic or something to be like viewed and not people. And you could say it was a symbol of like imperial conquering, and obviously not anything that you would want to see today. Especially, they even were going as far as to have human zoos And this one is in Paris. America had one with Filipino people. Belgium had one with Congolese people. They would bring them up into these zoos for people to view. And these would be trade fairs. So there was like selling of goods and then maybe even people in some of them. But the main one was to just spectate or see what the colonial exploits were gathering in other countries, which is very obviously not good. So if you were able to come up with a comparison, so both of these articles are going to be about colonial exploitation, where European or Western countries would go into a less developed country and take the people or make deals and trade goods in a very exploitative way, especially like the oil industry, things like this. But for the circus part, you could say that this was a time period when European nations were making like light or making a enjoyment or pastime out of other cultures, not really celebrating them at all, but just observing them in not a celebratory way. In fact, some of them were even using, this would be for like disabled people. They would have these freak shows where people with disabilities would just be viewed like as entertainment. Definitely how we could compare this. And then when we have the boys discover the hole in the canvas. Now, this could symbolize something. We know that the hole is new to the boys. They did not see it before. And this could symbolize their innocence, or maybe they have these animals that are going to be a problem for them. And it could also foreshadow something that there's more to come with the animals. If they have a hole in their canvas, then how did it get there? So in chapter 2, very important to note, the point of view switches. So now we have an astronomer and an industrialist. And this would be the parents or the fathers of the boys. And we find out why the astronomer, who is going to be Slim's dad, is there. The astronomer wants to use the industrialist, so the industrialist would be like just a wealthy person, like a tech mogul or an oil tycoon. Anyone who made their wealth from an industry would be an industrialist. And we learn that there are visitors from outer space that are going to be coming to the land to meet with them. And the astronomers reached out to them, and he understands how they communicate telepathically. And we also get some insight into these people's world or the setting that Isaac Asimov is building. So this time period before the wars, clearly World War II was not called before the wars. So he's making this fictional setting for these characters and maybe making it eerily similar to America and the rest of the world. Because remember, after World War II, in 1945 would have been the first time that anyone saw a nuclear weapon, too, when America dropped 2 nuclear bombs on Japan to end, well, technically World War II would have been over. So this was something that you could say is reflecting the Cold War, this idea that a society got totally destroyed. And we also learn about the aliens that they want coal and oil, and we get this. We start to see the idea of the youth of the race. So whatever happened in their society, they are basically nervous that if they don't, well, the astronomer's nervous that if they don't start communicating with these aliens, then they will not be able to move forward with their own civilization. And then that would hurt their youth. And it would be a good thing for you to get technology and knowledge from the aliens. Whereas the industrialist is going to be, he is suspicious of it. And he doesn't understand why, if they can come all the way to their planet, why do they just want coal and oil? Because even the aliens are going to know, or even the people here the astronomer and the industrialist are going to know that atomic or nuclear is better than coal and oil as far as like advanced technology that came after, right? So he's wondering why they want that. And if we go down, we would have our questions here. Once again, our perspective is changing. So this could be helpful for us as a reader because now we can see the point of view of the dads and they're going to know more than the kids. But it's also going to build us some irony because as we see, these kids have these aliens or animals. We might assume by now that the animals are actually the aliens that the astronomer is waiting for. This could talk anything about our setting, how they had a serious set of wars that destroyed a lot of their culture, infrastructure, societies, and now they are looking for ways to better their societies or their livelihoods. And we have, why would Asimov choose to end a chapter with the industrialist posing the question to the astronomer? And he's going to say, your friends should have been here by now, shouldn't they? That could be our hint that the animals are the aliens. And then in the final, well, not the final, but our third chapter, we now have a merchant. So a merchant is going to be someone that buys or sells goods. And we have a merchant, and he is talking with the explorer. And this would be our visitors. And here, when they say there would be no rescue, of course, there was the penalty paid for the high profits which unrestrained competition could lead to. The merchant who opened a new planet could have a 10-year monopoly of its trade, which he might hug to himself, or more likely rent out to all comers at a stiff price. If it followed that planets were searched for in secrecy and preferably away from the usual trade routes. So basically this tells us that these two aliens, they went on this mission to find goods or natural resources, and now they have crashed. And if they are lost, the price that they're paying for this expedition is basically their life. Like, no one's going to come save them. So we learned that their situation here is pretty desperate. And we could also start to characterize them. If their lives are worth a trade deal, then we might say that money is incredibly important to these aliens. And now they're going to start talking about how this has happened. Friendship between alien intelligence is an imponderable. They are not dangerous, I think. We've come to other groups that could maintain equilibrium. So we learn here of what the aliens are thinking and that what's going to happen with their ship. And they're going to figure out why. So basically they just had an issue with their ship. It crashed. And the pilot and everyone else are dead. And so then they start talking about the children, Red and Slim. And we can assume that because they're kids, the thought projector or the telepath is not working. And we learn why they're not going to kill the children is you'll never trade with this planet. You'll never even leave it. You probably won't live the day out. And then because this is one of the young of the species, you should know what happens when a trader kills a native young. So we learn why the aliens, even though they have better technology, they are not going to hurt Red and Slim. So when we say, how does Asimov's point of view change again and create the irony? Well, now all three of our character lines are connected. We have Red and Slim, we have the aliens, and we have the dads. So this is creating irony because the boys don't know that their animals are aliens, and the dads don't know that their kids have the aliens. So we could say this is how the irony is created when other characters in the story don't know things and the reader knows something. That is what irony is. And we're going to be wondering when all these characters figure out their truths. And when we talk about the explorer and the merchant, are they genuine? That would just mean, like, do they really want to trade ideas and be fair with the astronomer and the industrialist? Are they not doing anything to these children because we really do know they're not doing anything to children because they want to do the trade deal. And now we also know that they're kind of desperate and they're trapped there. So that's going to make things even more difficult for them. And then next lesson, we'll go into chapter 4.